Hi, this is Vinny from the iMoot team. Paolo, I'll just unmute you, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this session, which is the, where are we, 12th, 13th session of this Mini Moot. Oh, looking at the webcam, he's run away. I'd just like to, Paolo, I'd like to thank you for presenting for us again. 2014 was the other time that you presented for us. So thanks for coming back. We didn't scare you off. I've been following Paolo on Twitter and occasionally pop into the University of Sussex blog and have a little look at some of your writings there. But just to introduce Paolo, I had to Google him, and a very accomplished academic with a BSc honours in chemistry, Masters in Management and Information Systems, Masters in Digital Media, which is obviously used by his digital drawings there on the first slide of the presentation, and also has a professional doctorate in education and currently running the IT team at the University of Sussex. So thank you once again for presenting for us, and I hope everyone enjoys the session.
Thank you, Vinny. Can you hear me? Okay, cool, excellent. Oh, great, okay. Well, thanks for introducing yourselves, those who have. Those who haven't, please do so. I'm interested to know what you do, where you are, and what you hope to get out of this session, hopefully. So Beth is in Florida, and she's into online professional development, which is cool. Donna from Canterbury, and Maureen Tech in Auckland, New Zealand. So I don't know what time it is over there, Maureen, or Donna, in fact, either of you. Oh wow, okay, so you might be sleepy. Yeah, okay, yeah. Baz is a developer from the Netherlands. 6 a.m. Jeff. Wow. Brilliant. Coffee. I have coffee here. But this morning here, it's 11 a.m. So, cool. Well, I'll start the presentation. I'm going to talk to you today about education, and I feel very privileged to do so because I think we all have an interest in education, don't we? So come to talk to you about it today is really exciting. I hope to generate some ideas and be thought-provoking, and hopefully, in the end, hopefully influence practice a little bit. So, I mean, education is steeped in culture and understanding of ourselves. Who doesn't remember their first day of school? And of course, who doesn't remember their last? I followed my friends in throwing away most of my A-level notes as soon as I'd finished, only to regret it badly when doing my university degree. Oh, youth, if I could tell you what I know today. So, education. Many of us are children in it. Some of us are thinking of returning to it, and many of us here in particular, I imagine, work in it. Well, and as a result, we all have strong opinions about education, don't we? We all have ideas about how it could be improved, and I've done some research, and hopefully you will be able to follow my message and make the future of teaching assessment a reality sooner. So as Vinny was saying, I have a background in university education. I was hooked on it for a while. He had 2 masters and a doctorate, far too much, of course. And of course, I didn't stick to one discipline. I did the chemistry first of all. Decided that was too specific. I was going down a route which seemed quite limited to me. Um, and then I moved on to different disciplines and finally got a doctorate in education, and that's certainly broad enough to entertain me. But of those disciplines that I studied, some might argue I know more about the education practices of those disciplines than the disciplines themselves. And what I mean by that is I've largely forgotten anything meaningful or useful about the content, but I do remember the teaching and assessment practices of the educational institutions where I studied. You see, I remember the things I repeatedly practiced better than the abstract things I was asked to remember. I don't know if that feels familiar to you. So in common culture, we seem to believe there's a difference between formal learning, such as the kind of learning we might imagine to be happening here, and informal learning, such as the learning that's going on here. And there's lots of learning going on here. The younger ones are learning perhaps from the older ones. They're all learning from each other. And the experts, the older ones, they're teaching the younger ones and in the process reflecting on their own ability. So of formal learning and informal learning, I don't believe actually there's a great difference. Learning is learning is learning. I do believe there's a difference between learning which narrows opportunities and learning that expands opportunities. But this is not the difference between formal and informal learning. Often I think actually what we mean when we talk about informal and formal learning is the difference between what institutions want us to learn, formal learning, and what we actually learn, informal learning. We all recognise spaces such as the one I'm showing you here, where we expect formal learning to happen. And we've been creating these spaces for formal learning for a very long time. Many of you will be familiar with this wonderful picture drawn in the 14th century of one of the very first universities in Bologna. No presentation of learning would be complete without it, would it? A classic picture of people having knowledge passed on to them. It looks like the students are engaging in formal learning, learning what the tutor wants them to learn. But there's a lot more informal learning going on here than meets the eye. Conscientious Dante has learned that if he sits in the front row and looks admiringly at the lecturer, he can actually be thinking about anything. William has learned that Sebastian is good for borrowing dinner money. And Francisco has learned if he drinks too much nettle wine the night before, he can always catch up on the notes later. And if any of you guys are sleeping, I will be looking out for you later. I'm sure we all have, Vinny, we all have. But it's not only the method of teaching that the ideal formal learning encourages that I have a problem with. Yeah, great painting, isn't it, Jeff? It's also what gets included in the formal learning curriculum. I believe students decide on university courses because they have an inner passion, or at least a deep interest in the disciplines they've chosen, but that we don't actually support or develop these passions. Formal education seems to consist of introducing and embedding facts and procedural skills into the repertoires of the students, but the facts and skills do not serve them for long. How much of the discipline do we remember from our university educations if we do not continue to practice them? I'd argue not very much. So what should students be learning from their educational experiences? In research I've conducted, university lecturers across a wide range of disciplines all gave me a similar skill sets that they wanted to develop in their students. So let me pause for a moment and ask you a question, if you don't mind. What do you think these skills included? What do you think the lecturers at my university wanted to see from their students by the end of their degree program? Just if you could type something in the chat, have a think about it. I'll leave you for say a couple of minutes, perhaps a minute. Able to think for themselves. Good answer, Gareth. Competency. Critical thinkers. Excellent. Competencies. To know more about who they are. I wonder if that's also true if you're a chemist or in the sciences. I think it is, but whether lecturers are thinking in that way, teaching, using knowledge in ways that teachers may not have even thought of. Yes, excellent. Okay, let me carry on. This is how I summed it up in any case. Well, I think they said much the same as you, to be honest. Criticality. Yes, we would hope graduates were astute and able to take up a concept or activity and analyze its effectiveness, pull it apart, say what's wrong with it. Resourcefulness. We would expect graduates to be able to find information and research concepts on their own. And inquisitiveness. Yes, we would hope graduates were interested and curious people about the disciplines that they were studying. When they entered the discipline, they were interested enough to choose it. When they came out, we would hope they were even more interested in the subject and even had even more to say about it. I mean, we would expect the students entering university to have these qualities, criticality, resourcefulness and inquisitiveness, but to be developed at a much deeper level through the course. They're skills which require the students to express their personality and moreover their creativity. So this might be, the next few slides might be familiar to some of you, Baz in particular, and people who've seen my talks before. This is, I've used Lego people. It's a lot of my understanding is based on research I did in my doctoral thesis, and or the ideas I've developed come from this. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that research. And I've done research since, and there's more, and it wasn't actually just this research that I'm relating back to. There were some other case studies. But here I'm going to introduce you to some tutors who I actually met, and obviously they've been anonymized, and I've got some composite students. These were the kind of students that I was meeting from the courses that the tutors were delivering. And I've used Lego Pitmen, so we all like Lego. I went to Legoland the other day actually with my kids. They've actually gone off Lego. I think I overdid it with the Lego. So yeah, they talked about these same qualities. Both lecturers told me that they aspired to develop criticality, resourcefulness, and inquisitiveness of their students. They both used blended learning, the power of the internet to support their teaching, and they both incorporated internet technologies with innovative assessment methods. The assessments would be called formative by many. Despite these similarities, there were profound differences, as I will go on to explain. Gareth, I thought that was true, but I don't know what's happened. Gareth says you never go off Lego. The first tutor I met, I hopefully will be familiar to some of you, in terms of what he said was very similar to other tutors I've talked to, and I think perhaps you'll have met too. He had been very innovative. He spent a lot of time developing his course, and he'd introduced a number of blended learning solutions, online tasks, and what can be called formative assessments. But although he probably wouldn't admit it, he hadn't branched far away from the traditional model of teaching and assessment. He designed a content-heavy curricula. And so I called him Dr. Traditional Science Tutor. He used weekly multiple choice questions, which were available online, laboratory practicals and write-ups, which are submitted again online, and just short written essays, which were also submitted online. Dr. Traditional recognised that the students were not developing the skills he told me he wanted to see. He claimed his students focused on doing as little as possible, never going to the library, never straying much from the information he gave them. He thought it was the students themselves that were lazy as a result of their schooling and a lack of motivation. And his solution was to fill his course with more content, and also with these sort of ongoing tests throughout the course and activities. It was a good idea on the face of it, but then I went to go to speak to his students. And I found, unlike what Dr. Traditional's assumptions, the students I met were extremely motivated. But I did develop a name for them based on what they said, the dependent students. Of the online quizzes, they said they made them paranoid, and they said the stress stops me from learning. When asked about their independence, they said the teacher will tell me what I need to know. So much for resourcefulness or inquisitiveness. And in terms of their confidence in the subject, they said, I will always need tutor feedback to tell me how good I am. I'll say that again. I will always need feedback to tell me how good I am. The teaching method was embedding the polar opposite belief system that the ones we would hope to be developing in our graduates. And I argue that it isn't the students themselves who applied for the course full of motivation, but the teaching and assessment method. The fact he used online tools that the students could complete in their own time made no difference to the overall message that the course gave his students. And it's an approach to teach assessment that many dedicated, well-meaning lecturers take because of the cultural norms and expectations of learnings that we hold. The students I met on this and many other courses I've researched were losing touch with their intrinsic motivation for learning, because I don't know if it came through from what I've said before. It was all about their content. It wasn't asking the students what they knew or what they wanted to know, or doing it at their own pace. The teaching methods had not developed the core skills we expect to see in graduates. The online tools did not change the message the students received about the skills they should be practicing. Verbatim recital was still imagined to be the desired outcome. The formative assessments were not developing the students with the graduate skills that we or the lecturer expected. They were not being immersed in the discipline, and they felt just like I felt after a number of my higher education experience, that they knew more about the educational process, how to pass assessments, than the discipline themselves. I'm sure you'll agree that something is very wrong. Are we developing disciplinary experts with experience in being are we developing disciplinary experts or people with experience in being a student? We've not engaged these students with tasks which expand the possibilities in their life, like informal learning tends to. We have limited them in a belief system that knowledge is learning stuff that other people want them to know. Formal learning. It may be useful if education was a system of selection, but it does not help develop people. I imagine we are all familiar with Ken Robinson. In 2006, he delivered the most watched TED Talk of all time with his views on education. He said, Our education system has mined our minds in the same way that we strip mine the earth for particular commodities, and for the future it will not serve us. He is talking about education becoming a system of selection, not a system of teaching and learning. And in this system of selection has developed a hidden curriculum. It's been talked a lot about for 50 years now. And it's never been more true. Students focus on passing assessments, and there are easier ways to do so than learning, such as memorization and copying ideas and rewording them in essays. And this really is the contract that we made with students when they walk through these university doors. Just as if I were a contractor, I'd expect any work I did to be recognised, valued and paid for. A student expects their effort to be assessed, or they will not do it. It's common sense, so they concentrate on passing those assessments. So it is our duty to align our assessments with what we want our students to learn. As educators, as civilians with an interest in education, which I'm sure we all have, we must make sure the assessment is aligned. And I'm allowed to talk a bit about another quote anyway from Ken Robinson. He said, Ken Robinson said of schooling, my contention is that creativity is as important in education as literacy, and we should be treated with the same status. In any level of education, I will give you a reason why this is true, but at university level, which is my specialism, we are expecting individuality and flair. We need idea generators, whatever the discipline. So how do we get there? Well, I argue we combine what we know of informal learning with formal learning. So what goes on in informal learning? First, there are experts from whom we learn. They inspire us. Second, there are peers, in this case dancing partners, people we can share moves with, sharing the skills and knowledge motivate us. And then there are newcomers that we teach, and this gives us an opportunity to reflect on what we know. And this is very much the same model that we see in work-based learning scenarios, where the people are paying for the teaching and have a vested interest in the students' learning. It is a familiar model of learning that we see in community of practice theory for those who are familiar with it. But how can we combine the model of learning that we see here with our formal education environments? I will now introduce you to a final module that I had the pleasure to research and its lecturer. I've aptly named this lecturer Professor Peer Engagement, and I feel she successfully addressed the contention between formal and informal learning, because in this course there was neither, just learning. She gave her students a specialism within the discipline, which the students could relate the theories she was introducing them to. She set up peer-to-peer activities and games within the seminars where the students had a natural conversation points based on the different perspectives that resulted from their specialism. She also set up peer reviews of the draft student essays, and each of the students did presentations to the other students about their specialism, taking a teaching and expert role within the groups. Students built a portfolio for assessment, which would include essays, peer reviews, and the presentation which they delivered, and could optionally include seminar contributions, forum discussion, and a journal. The students built up the portfolio of work. This is the type of activities that the students were expected to engage with were designed to develop the students' criticality, resourcefulness, and inquisitiveness about the discipline, so they became experts within their field of study. And I think of this course as having a project-based curricula because the different learning activities and formative assessments were different from each other, built upon each other, and were linked through the portfolio assessment. And this is how I believe we and the students should be conceptualizing any curricula as a project. The students I talked to on this course felt that they were going on a personal journey, so I call them the personal journeys. One said, the module is changing my personality, and it's not only the knowledge I've learned, but it's also changed my habits and improved my ability to learn. These are real quotes. I'll repeat this again. It has improved my ability to learn. I'd like that to happen to me. I don't know about you. But her teaching and assessment style did not develop non-specific transferable skills. The students had taken the discipline to heart. They had not lost their intrinsic motivation for choosing their degree subject. One said, I was really motivated to shape and develop my area of interest and present it to my peers. They were showing resourcefulness, motivation, and keenness to show off their knowledge. This course for me had found the holy grail, reinforcing the students' learning autonomy while they covered the curriculum. The tutor had developed the students' criticality, resourcefulness, and inquisitiveness with respect to the discipline she was teaching. She was developing discipline experts, not experts at being students. So the tutor had combined informal learning into a formal learning curriculum. She'd introduced students to disciplinary theories and ideas in doing inspired her students. She had developed teaching and learning activities where students shared what they knew and built knowledge collaboratively. And she developed activities where students could practice being disciplinary experts, sharing their specialism with others in a teacher-like role. The tutor for me had created a project-based curriculum. She'd passed on theories throughout the course which the students needed to adopt and use in relation to their project. She had developed teaching and learning activities where students shared what they knew and built knowledge collaboratively. And she had developed activities where students could practice being disciplinary experts, sharing their specialism with others in a teacher-like role. So I'm going to quickly go through top tips. One day I would like to. So in this, I've developed in this slide. I've developed an infographic with a colleague of mine, which tries to promote my ideas. And the way I have conceptualized it is a road, and that road symbolizes the journey that the student has through the course, and the speech bubbles that come from that, in fact, the trees, they conceptualize what we should be doing along their pathway, within their pathway through the course. So I'll return to this slide, and anyone's welcome to have a look at it on the blog as well. It's a way that I believe that we should be taking our curricula forward, and it is, and in the future, I'd really like to. I'm going to get a matrix and put and develop a matrix that tutors can easily see how they could put these ideas into practice within their teaching and assessments. I'm now quickly going to go through some ideas that I have, in particular in relation to blended learning and Moodle. So, of MCQs, testing learning through multiple choice questions can be fun. I mean, I can enjoy doing multiple choice questions and can be an efficient way for building students' knowledge on content, which we know is usually temporary and remembered through short-term memorization techniques. But it can also help to develop a student's analytical capacity if we're asking students to make logical connections between concepts. But on their own, multiple choice questions are often dispiriting. That's what I've found in my research. And on their own, they do little for improving criticality, independence, or inquisitiveness. But within project-based curricula, multiple choice questions can be used as a starting point for other learning activities, such as conversations with peers, a power graph into reflective journals, including how knowledge fits with their interests in the subject. The multiple choice questions can be something that students can create themselves as well, of course, which can be an interesting pedagogic tool. So I'm not off multiple choice questions, they're just a starting point of a conversation. Peer assessments, certainly peer review, is something I'm in favour of. It's getting students to work together really inspires learning. They have a different relationship with peers to they have with the tutors. They take on board peers' comments more critically and therefore are able to challenge them, and this in itself brings on learning. We see it all the time in informal learning and workplace learning, where the learning matters more than just passing a test. But peer assessments need to be part of a logical sequence of learning activities, incorporated into a project-based curricula as well. Feedback is always improved when a student can respond to it. So if your online peer assessments don't allow an opportunity for that, I would encourage you to have a look at it again. It's even more important when the feedback is from peers, because they do not naturally respect the opinion of their peers in the same way they do their tutors. It is also improved if the students create their own assessment criteria, because they start to understand the value of their work. The online is an important part of the peer assessment because it can help the distribution of work between peers and allow for online conversations. But obviously it's not necessary, and face-to-face peer assessments can be even more useful for learning. Forums are of course great, but they often don't work. They sometimes don't generate the discussion you intend. But the advice I would give is to make sure, if you're the tutor, that you are completely engaged with the forum, asking and responding to relevant questions about the topics that you're introducing. Keep it vibrant, keep it alive, and use it from the very beginning of your module. The tutor needs to ask for personal accounts and perceptions that avoid right or wrong answers. They don't want to look stupid on a forum. And a journal is a great learning tool. It brings together the learning on a course as they diarise their journey and the learning that's happening for them. And in doing so, the diarising it makes it a project. It brings it all together. It's also an excellent use of an online tool. And I'm a great fan of the portfolio. When assessing by portfolio, you can bring in all the elements of the course into the assessment. The portfolio should include what they did, what they contributed, what they learned, what they shared, and what they taught others. The more culturally embedded and the more people, excuse me, yeah, I believe project-based curricula is the future for education. When we get there is another matter. And finally, I leave you with my infographic. Thank you. That was my presentation. I hope it worked and made sense. And do you have any questions?
Hi, Paolo. This is Vinny from the iMoot team, just jumping in again. I just want to say thank you very much for that presentation. It was great. I don't want to stop any of the conversation, so please, if anybody watching that has got any more questions for Paolo, please either put them in chat. And there's also the forums on the course page that Paolo set up to go along with this presentation. So if you think of anything later on that you want to ask or contribute, please make a note of it there. But I'd just like to say once again, thank you, Paolo. That was a great, inspirational, motivational, and certainly made me reflect on a few things that presentation. So thanks for talking for us today.
Thank you, Vinny. Yeah, I will go back and check the forum if anyone wants to has any thoughts there, or if they want to contact me any other way. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, and yeah, I need to update the blog a little bit more. But yeah, hopefully you'll be able to find me on the web, I think, if you search my name, and I'll be very happy to. Oh yes, and I've uploaded my thesis. It's true, yes. Yeah, so there's some stuff on the actual iMoot site as well. I'd be interested as well to hear about any alternative points of view or problems that people think about the theory or project-based learning in general. I'm sure there are, there's things to be discussed.